I'm really sorry for the delay this morning. So hopefully I am actually back online now. Okay, so hello, I'm back online. So little technical thing there, and I think I logged into the previous page, so LVS page. So don't worry about that. If you see that, ignore that one. I'm going to actually start it now. So a little bit late again today. Really sorry. All new technology for me, but I'm learning every day. I think it's 2 weeks running now where I think I've had a bit of a panic. Okay, so thank you for last week, and I really enjoyed that discussion, and you can probably hear my phone pinging there because I actually said to marketing, can you actually tell me if I'm online now? Otherwise I'll be sat here talking to myself for another 10 minutes. So throughout the session you can actually send your questions as they arrive, and I did send some blurb last week or early in the week about this session. So if you want to ask some questions, pop them through as I'm talking. So last week we had a good discussion. Something came through about mental health and well-being. So I'm a little bit concerned that maybe we're not picking up exactly how you're feeling right now, because it's very hard to gauge when we're doing our best remotely. But if you do have any concerns regarding mental health and well-being, please ping those questions through. And we're going to survey parents, staff and pupils today to just gauge how you're feeling, and is there anything else that we can be doing to help you. Now, this is a really quite emotional time for a lot of people for a number of reasons, and especially when it comes to exams. And we're going to be exploring all the exams, the GCSE A Levels, and our assessments and exams across the school in this session. And I can remember six years ago when my eldest child got his A Level results. I can remember going and sitting by the lake. It's nerve-wracking enough being a head or a teacher when they come through, but believe me, when you're a parent, you just can't imagine that feeling that you feel, that the build-up, the closure that you get, and the way you feel. And I went and sat down by the lake with a glass of something sparkly, and just had a quiet moment on my own, and I felt really quite emotional that it had come to an end, and I was pleased and I was happy. But I sat there and I thought, I've got to go through this twice more. Wow. And how will I feel when the youngest one in 6 years from now goes through it? How am I going to feel? But little did I know, sat there, and I can picture that day quite clearly, that we'd be in this position. It is just absolutely unbelievable. And therefore, I can only empathise with what all the exam parents and pupils are feeling right now. But we've got to get on with it, and we will, and we'll look forward to better times, and we're going to do this properly. We're going to really nail this, guys. So on the 18th of March 2020, the Secretary of State for Education announced that there would be no GCSE, AS and A Level exams. And that was like a real wow moment. We did not see that coming. Probably could have anticipated there was going to be disruption, but never a total cancellation of the exam series. And then a week later, we were on lockdown, so it's not as if we've had the time to really talk this through with our children and to be able to look them in the face and the eyes and say, we'll get it right for you, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And everybody's been at home with this anxiety. Now, I said to the team yesterday, I said, we are so lucky because on a daily basis, we receive government updates, we receive advice from associations and unions as well. And we're talking about it all the time and we're living it. But for parents that are home who don't have that source of constant communication, this must be a really testing time. And we have lots of questions, but if we're not answering them, keep coming back. Just keep asking those questions. We want to reassure you as much as possible. Now, last week, more direction came out, which I must admit I was actually quite thrilled about. I thought all my scepticism and how unfair it is and all this kind of thing started to dwindle away, because I really do think that the government and Ofqual have got it right. And they opened a consultation last week and it closes on the 29th of April. So have a look at it. I sent the link in the blurb earlier this week. It's for everybody to contribute to. It's not just about head teachers or teachers, it's about everyone. They want to hear your views, and it's quite extensive, and I feel really quite proud of them, the fact that they are canvassing our opinions. So go and take a look. Now, we are continuing to look at work that Year 13 and Year 11 are providing, and the government guidance was that schools do not need to provide any evidence for these grades. And you do not need to set any more work after the 20th of March when schools closed. And that's mainly due to the poor children that are totally disadvantaged by what's going on, where there is no internet, where there are no devices, where there's no online platforms. Apparently even the government platform is under the scrutiny of lawyers right now, that it isn't good enough. So I think, we've got it pretty good with what we have here. So going back to that, why are we collecting it? Well, the reasons are year 11 and year 13 would be in school right now anyway, and they would be taking assessments and revising and going right up until the date of their exam. And there's and it's only right really that we keep working. We owe it to ourselves and our future universities and sixth form colleges and school and employers to be the best we are. So we should keep learning those skills, because for year 13, when you go to university, it is a big step up again. They used to say that A levels were harder than the degrees. And I think, going back to my time, that probably was the case. But I see what my children do in their economics degrees, and I'm actually taking my hat off them. It's really hard. So come on, keep learning. You have a right to 190 days education a year as well. And you'll never get that time back. So take it, go for it. Let's really go for it. And also, all pupils make progress in those last 6 to 8 weeks, especially boys. And there are some of us, myself included, who are quite 11th hour. Now, if you've got one of those, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you're an 11th hour person, then you also know what I'm talking about. So there is room for progress. Now, we don't have to submit the final grades until later in May. In March, we gave you interim grades, where we said right now, if we had to submit the grades right now, what's the best possible grade? They weren't your final grades. They were a minimum grade that we would submit right now. So there is room for improvement if you can do it. Now, you may think that you've peaked. You may think if you're at the AA star, there's very little place for you to go to. You might think if you're further down those grading barriers that that's the best that you can do. And the next set of assessments and exams may only cause you more anxiety. And if that's the case, then talk to Mr. Jenkins, talk to Mr. Patrick, talk to me and say, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. Talk with your parents. It's all about talking. And if you don't want to carry on, then that's fine. But if you still feel you've got a little bit more to improve upon, do it. Now, those grades probably won't go up a tremendous amount. There won't be huge leaps, but it might be just enough to tip you over into the next grade boundary. So our assessments are going to take place for year 11 and year 13, starting on Monday for 2 weeks. And then during the week commencing the 11th of May, we will get those things marked. We will get the grades. And during the week of the 18th of May, we will be looking at the grade boundaries, and where we were looking at the discussion of the ranking of grades. So that means we will take all pupils who, for example, are in a grade B area of, say, maths, and we will discuss as departments the ranking within that grade. And then departments do ranking right across the whole cohort. And it's almost like a running order. We have to submit that to the exam boards. Now, the reason why I want evidence, is that I have to sign off every set of grades. And I need to have hand on my heart that we have justified giving those grades. We could also be held to account as well. So I'll talk about the standardisation process shortly. But if we were to submit a set of grades that's kind of fall out of what we would normally achieve as a school based on historical data, the exam boards could ask us for that evidence. Now, I don't think in the case of LVS that would be the case, because we have quite robust statistical, historical data which we can prove, but we need to be ready just in case. Okay, so they're the exams, and that's why we're collating the evidence. Now, the evidence, the standardisation will look at the prior attainment of each centre, and I keep looking up because I've got it pinned up on the wall. I just want to get this absolutely right. They will look at the prior attainment of this year's cohort and past cohorts. They will look at the expected national grade distribution for the subject and prior attainment of the national entry. And they are looking at the professional judgement of teachers, which seems to be the best indicator of what a pupil can achieve. Now, looking back, because you always had to have put your teacher judgment in, and they were always compared to final results. And research shows that half of the teachers will be spot on accurate with their predictions, a third will be too generous, and a sixth will be too pessimistic. Now, they think that with this standardisation process, which is very fair and very robust, it will rule out any teacher's unconscious bias. Now, what I mean by that, and it's been raised nationally, and I've heard people say, oh, it will be a popularity contest. The pupils that are favoured will get good grades, and those of us that have been, slightly bit naughty or whatever, will be judged on our behaviour rather than our academic attainment. And that's not the case. Now, teachers don't do that. Well, I say that probably across the country there might be one or two, but this standardisation process will actually rule that out completely, which is really, really good as well. So on May the 29th, we can start submitting the grades, and we have a 2-week window to do that. And those grades are confidential. They're confidential to the school. They will be held by the exams officer, and they will be signed off and sent off to the exam boards. And then it goes through their standardisation procedure. Now, when it goes through that procedure, looking at all the data that they're collecting for that subject, grades could go down. I don't think they will, because I think our data is so robust, our historical data, we can prove what we'd normally do in a normal year. So I'm quite confident that what we submit will stand. So we will be looking at sampling work within those rankings before it goes off, and once they're off. That will be a relief as well. But please ensure those grades are confidential. So we cannot be put under pressure by any pupils or parents to, one, know the grade, or two, push for a higher grade, because that's not going to happen. We have to be moral, ethical, and really robust, because there will be malpractices coming out this for people who haven't been fair. So the big question is there an appeal procedure? So up until now, it didn't look as if there was going to be one, but in the consultation, it actually makes a number of suggestions. And I'm going to read directly from that document. It says, the Secretary of State said in his direction to Ofqual that students should have access to a right of appeal if they believe the process was not followed correctly in their case. I'm cutting and pasting a bit here. We propose that appeals should be made to exam boards by centres on behalf of one or more students on the grounds that the wrong information was used to generate calculated grades, or that a mistake was made when the exam board standardised the grade or communicated the grades to the centre. We propose a student who believes they've been given the wrong grade should ask their centre to review the accuracy of the data the centre submitted to the exam board. If the centre finds it made a mistake, the centre should ask the exam board to correct the impact of that mistake and issue the student with a revised grade. So all these things they are being discussed, it's part of the consultation, and it does look like there will be a very fair right of appeal. So that's going on for year 11 and 13. A little bit about the universities. You don't need to worry about that. They've been told to hold off another 2 weeks and hold off any unconditional offers. Now, I'm not a firm believer in unconditional offers, but maybe this year this will alleviate any kind of pressure that you feel getting into your first choice of university. The universities are going to want you in them. But you've got to make sure now, when this information comes out, that you make the right choices. I'll tell you why. There will be a lack of overseas pupils coming, and there will be a lot of universities who will really financially struggle. It's a very bad place for them, probably a little bit worse than it is for independent schools right now. So they're going to want you. You need to make the right choice. I know that there's already been one university contacted one of my children to say, you haven't applied, you went to an open day, you didn't apply, it's not too late, you can do it now. But you've got to think, okay, my ego's been, boosted a little bit, they want me, but make the right choice. You made your choices for the right reasons in the first place. Don't be clouded by any offers that you might get now. Make sure it's for you, the right place, the right course, the right city, the right qualification. Don't jump in, and if suddenly you get inundated with offers, please contact Mr. Patrick and the sixth form team, and we'll point you in the right direction. Now, I'm conscious I'm talking so much, but I'm going to move on. Year 10 and 12, don't worry. you are also included in that consultation piece. Now, they know that you're struggling, you're missing out on big chunks of your education, or potentially could be the way that we're looking with the lockdown. So you are going to be the next focus. They're going to look at the impact for you. And it's already been suggested that the exam season may already go into July 2021. So before you book any holidays for 2021, hold fire, because it looks like you might be going on a little bit longer. But anyway, that will all, don't worry, things will be put in place for you. I'm sure a lot more progress will be made in June as well. So going back to our whole school. So why are we assessing? Why are we taking exams? Well, the bottom line is, if you were here, you'd be doing them anyway. Now, we need ways in which we can prove your progress. We need ways in which we can say, well done, you've done this, and this is the grade you've got. And we also like to benchmark ourselves across the country with similar institutions. So, for example, Key Stage 1, they're going to have a little bit of a problem because their GL assessment is usually done online, their progress tests. And I spoke to GL assessment this morning, and they have no plans to... So they're not online. They're normally paper. They have no reason to put them online. They can't do it in time, and they won't be able to standardise it. So Mrs. Cox is thinking about a way in which we can do our Key Stage 1 assessments as we speak. Then with Key Stage 2, English, Maths and Science will be held after May half term, and your other subjects will be graded and monitored and assessed by your teachers as they normally would be as well. Now, for years 7 and 10, you have exams and assessments as well, and more details will come out from the heads of department. In year 12, your exams are going to be open book assessments, and it might be we use the open book assessment for years further down the school, because we want this to be a really good learning experience for you. We want the best opportunity for you to show us what you can do, and then we can write some really worthwhile reports and prepare you moving forward into the next year. So we want to create normality for you. Your learning cannot stop. We have to keep learning. We don't want to lose our education. We certainly don't want to be learning in the summer holidays, because if lockdown finishes, we want to be outside and we want to be enjoying ourselves as well. Now, that's the end of this session. I've got lots of questions coming in. Sorry for talking too much. So I'm going to quickly scout over to the left-hand side here. So we got pupils must be worried about how this might impact them moving into university or apprenticeships. I think we've just explained that one there. I think there's no worries about it. I think everyone's going to want you in their universities. Then we got, how will you help the year 11 and year 10 cohorts starting in September catch up in preparation for GCSEs? That is a really good question. So I think what we will be looking at is, we don't know how long we're going to be out of school. I personally think we won't be back till September, but we've heard a rumour that a school in Germany has opened up for their exam years already. Now, that could be the first return, year 10 and year 12 into school. We've just got to make sure that it's the right move to come back, because we don't want a second flare-up of the virus. But what we'll do is, as the term progresses, we will monitor what we've done and what we haven't done. And then come September, we will have a plan in place. So we'll make sure that you will not be disadvantaged, that you will be able to catch up. So please don't worry. You're always our primary concern, always at the front of it. So amongst the worry and concern regarding the exam piece, do you actually see any benefits of positives given the situation? Maybe there's something wrong. I think there will be lots of questions asked about the way we do things. There's actually some bodies that are calling for the GCSEs to be scrapped altogether and for it to do on teacher assessment. There's actually one independent school that scrapped the GCSEs a few years ago and do their own assessments. Now, I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I'm not sure I totally agree with the GCSE, but now is a time for us to say that we've always done it that way. What's best for us? What's best for those children nationally now? What could we do? Are we too antiquated in the way we learn? Should we be doing something else? Right, I'm scrolling down here. Oh, nice message there. Nice to see you again, and it's lovely to see you too. I've had a parent here. I didn't know you were an 11th hour person and you think it's genetic. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Next time I see you, I can give you a pat on the back and say, well, welcome, I'm an 11th hour person as well. But I never would have thought, knowing you, that you were. So well done. You've mentioned EPQs before. How do those benefit pupils? Well, EPQ is the Extended Project Qualification, and it's a study that Year 12 and 13 can undertake where they choose a topic of interest. And that can be anything they want. And it's a research topic. And so therefore, some of the things that we've produced in the past have been amazing, wonderful, about politics, about genetics, about nature. And they are actually classed as and graded as an A Level, and universities really favour them. They like them. They will include those in offers. So get on the bandwagon of that. If you're in year 11, and especially now, if you don't want to do those assessments, start it now. What an opportunity to start it now. And even if you do the assessments, you can always do them after May half term. Okay, so next one. Who will be looking at this standardisation information, and what will it mean for individual students, if anything? So it's Ofqual, the exam boards, that will be looking at standardisation. It's not the school. So all we've got to do is make sure that we have that discussion within the bands, within the grades, and then as a whole cohort, so that we can say, this is what we feel our pupils have achieved. And we've got the evidence to prove it. Then they run it through their little machine or whatever they do. I can imagine a little box like this in one end and out the other, where they will look at historical data from the school, what we've achieved over the last 3 years. They will look at what their national expectations for that subject are this year. And they will look at historical data, achievement in particular age groups of this year and previous years as well. It looks really comprehensive. If you're interested in things like that, take a look at the consultation document, because it explains it as far more comprehensively than what I can explain it to you. But I think it's robust. And I think almost, as I say, we're a large school with a lot of historical data, and I feel quite happy that we should have a really good outcome from this. Another question here. Do you think there will be a change in the curriculum, A-level expectations for year 12 doing exams next year, as they have missed key classes, trips, lectures? Yeah, there's got to be some kind of modification, even if it is that the year extends a little bit next year. Well, we just got to wait and see. And I do feel for you. I can see you're a year 12 parent of a boy as well, and you're probably really worrying about that. But the kids won't be disadvantaged. One here. Do you expect lots of appeals? Wow. Right. If you'd asked me that question 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yes, it's going to be a real bun fight. I'm not so sure now. In our school, I think because we've already given the children what we would have thought they would have got in March, we would have had a lot more comeback already if we thought that children thought we were being unfair with what we're doing. So I think our kids can see that we've got it right. We've got it right for them. We know what they're doing and what they're capable of achieving. I think it'll be in schools where they're not as, we run a really tight school here, with our teaching, with our assessment, with our moderation, the way we work. We go by the book, and there's very few flaws that we have in the system. There will be schools where it's not so tight and people don't have that trust that we have, and where maybe children have been off school with no online learning. So I do think there will be appeals, but not necessarily in our school. So we've got one here. Open book exams are very different from normal exams. Will there be some discussion with the students about that technique? Yeah, really good question there. We have to explain what an open book exam is. We have to maybe give them examples of it as well. This is a work in progress. And we feel that it's good to have open book, because by doing open book, you can get better quality. It's more of a learning experience. And why not take that advantage of that opportunity to have a learning experience as well as examination experience as well? We have, when will the year 10 assessments be this term? I haven't got that information right in front of me, but the letter we sent out with the interim grades in March gave you the programme for the summer term. So if you're unsure what your child's doing per year, look at the letter that was attached to your interim. If not, contact Mr. Jenkins and he can send that out to you again as well. What is the process in year 11 to start the EPQ? Okay, instead of doing the assessments, if you don't want to do the assessments, contact Mr. Jenkins or Mr. Padrick and you can start doing the EPQ now. It's all about what you want to do. Now, we also know that there will be transitions into different year groups as well, and there'll be transition into sixth form, and there'll be transition from year 6 into year 7. So therefore, the LVS session next week is on transition, and we will be holding a number of information evenings, slightly different to what we've done in previous years, because obviously we still can't meet. But in the first 2 weeks of June, we'll be holding Facebook Live evening sessions, and my colleagues will be doing those. So Mrs. Cox will be doing one on year 6 into year 7 and junior school. I'll be doing the year 7 one. Dr. Hodges will be doing years 8 and 9. Mr. Jenkins will be doing 10, 11, and Mr. Padrick will be doing the sixth form. So we're going to give you lots of information about transition and about how the year's going. It's all about communicating with you and hearing your feedback. So if you've got any questions still to come, please send them through, because I think we're coming to the end of this session. One question here is, if the year 11 and year 13 students are okay with their interim grades, is there any point in them doing the tests that are coming up? If you feel you've done enough and it's not going to do you any good, don't do it. Move on. I mean, I can see this is from a parent who's got children in both years, and especially with the year 13, it might be now, let's think about university. Let's think about that course. What can I do to prepare me for that course? It might be worth even contacting the university and said, is there any reading I can do, any preparation I can do now in this summer term? Keep busy, keep learning. A question, will you be holding an EPQ evening session? That is a really good session. I've got my suggestion, I've got my pen here. I'm going to write that down. EPQ, we normally wait till we come back, but that's something for this summer term, and I'm going to make sure that goes in maybe in the next week or so that we can kickstart that and get it off the ground. Parents just said, I think it's the week beginning the 1st of June for the year 10 exams, the week after half term. So any more questions? Anybody got any more questions? Because I think that's it. Oh, here we go. If year 11 start EPQ, when is the end of the EPQ work, please? Okay, so it's a lot of it is how motivated the student is, and we will make sure that comes out in the EPQ summer term when we do that presentation. I know some pupils have really done that quite quickly, whereas others are taking their time with it, and it's more about the learning experience, getting the best from it, not rushing it, taking time, and making sure that you get a good mark in it. We've got one here. Heard a rumour, read the Department of Education. I've only got half a message there to that parent, so if you can give me the rest of it, we'll find out what that rumour is. But any other questions? It's gone really quiet. Okay, now let's see what happens. Next week, if you tune into the transition one, we might also have an update from the universities as well. Some nice messages coming in about the sessions being really useful. That's what we're here for. So always here. Oh, here we go. What's happening with the D&V program? Is it still on? Okay, good one. I'll get you now. That was it. So we are having to obviously postpone our expeditions. Mrs. Collins, who's our head of co-curricular, she is looking at when we can do those expeditions. Now, if you've got a child that leaves school this year, don't worry, we will try and see if we can facilitate them as well. And remember, you've got up to the age of 25 to complete the qualification as well. And how is D&V being taught? Really good one. Okay, again, pen comes out. I'm going to put that about D&V because we need to keep you on board and make sure we're running some kind of session. So that is on my list to take back to the team. So I think we are now coming to the end. I'll give you 5 seconds more to send me a question, and we're coming up to the half an hour mark. Okay, it looks like it's that. So have a lovely weekend. Keep as safe as you can. I really do miss you, and I'm looking forward to next week. So over and out. Bye bye.